Welcome to Don't Whistle at Night podcast, where Navajo legends echo in the shadows. Darren and Dawn will guide you through the sacred fire of native storytelling, where the old stories breathe, the unknown walks among us, and voices, long hidden, rise to be heard. And remember, don't whistle at night.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome. I am Don Yazzie. Welcome to Don't Whistle at Night. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans. I am your host, Don Yazzie, and I'm going to bring my co-host, Darren Yazzie. I'd like to say hello to everyone out there. I hope everyone's doing well. It is 80 degrees here in St. George, Utah. So I hope everyone is having a nice, cool evening. And let's bring on the co-host here, Pine Hill's most interesting man.
Hey, what's up, guys? Well, we got Rodney back, and it's always a pleasure to talk to him. Get his input on the world on his side. And this is what we're gonna do right now. Is this is different cultures communicating with one another. Which is a very unique thing. I never thought I would be able to do this, but hey, look at us now. So, yeah, let's do this, and let's go.
All right. Yeah, like what Darren said, it is an honor. And communicating with another tribe, a brother and sister tribes, we're all family. And the more connections that we can make with other tribes, it'd be great for all the generations. Before we started the podcast, I used to love going to different reservations, different states, check out that reservation, just to mingle a little bit with the locals, as much as possible. And that's one of the things that I love to do. And this is the same thing, but virtual, and it's been really fun. So let's start the show. Let's bring on the guests. Drum roll, please. Here we go. Hey.
Yeah, the honor is all mine, guys. Just fix my camera a little bit.
Yeah, need to do a little fixing too here on my side.
Yeah, the honor is all mine. I never thought I'd be, have so many friends from down south, the Navajo Res, and the whole group that we've kind of created on TikTok. By the way, if you're listening from TikTok, okay, it's good to have you guys here. And I always feel honored when other folks want to talk about these things too. It's just one of those things where all of our stories kind of intermingle. They're really similar when you get down to it. And I don't know, it's just an honor to be able to do this. I feel you, Darren.
Right. It's we put in a very unique situation. We get to suffer for not for ourselves, but for the audience that's hearing now, and the audience that's going to hear it later. Which is a very amazing thought that I usually put my mind towards. I think more of the future. So, I never really thought I would be right here, but hey, man, it's very unique. This life is still full of surprises, and I can't stop loving it. Loving everything, all the mystery in this world, and all that. We did a little collaborative talking with a couple of the locals out here again, and some of the stories, they're coming out of the woodworks, which is a very unique thing too. So I'm very happy for that. So where do you guys want to lead this off at now? Where did we leave off in the last episode? So we got
spirits.
What was that?
The alcohol spirits and the generational trauma and stuff like that is kind of where we're at.
That's one thing I think every reservation can relate on is these alcohol spirits. Where do they come from? What are they? Because they weren't from here. There are tribes out there, and the Apaches, they make they make their tolopai, their alcohol like that too, which is kind of passed down through the generations. But I can truly say that the Native American population are the alcohol is reaping havoc on the people. And even the name itself, spirit, where what kind of spirit, these ain't from here, and all of us can relate on the effects of alcohol. And everybody here can has their stories, their party stories, their stories that just go way out, and people just flipping out and tripping out. I guess you would just say that, just bugging out. And that's one thing I always want to talk about too, is when these when they black out drunk. I was talking with one of my friends, and he said that he blacked out drunk, and he drove to the casino. He didn't know how he got there, and who was driving. Well, it wasn't him, who had control of his body when he was out, when black from this alcohol. Whatever these spirits are, they're kind of explained to me like they're not biased. This is the only thing that's not biased in this world, is these alcohol. The spirit of alcohol wants everybody, women, men, children, you name it, it's out there for everybody. And it's the only thing that I came to believe is it's not biased at all when it comes down to it. It wants everybody and everything you have. And all of us, I'm pretty sure all of us can relate on that subject matter. This alcohol is reaping havoc on the population. I see it all the time. And then with them, come these entities like Rod has with the goat men. The goat, they're attracted to these what it does to the mind, to the conscience of the people around it, especially being new to alcohol, because alcohol was never here, and it's only been here for maybe 300 years, 200 years, give or take. And there's a whole dispute about it also, of everything that we lost and everything that we thought we got back. It's not really the same after alcohol. And with these spirits too, we have a snake spirit too that I was told about, what that comes with alcohol too. And they would, people will get kind of possessed, you would say, overtaken by these alcohol spirits, and they would slither, believe it or not, like snakes. And that's something that I seen also. And it was one thing that I was talking about on the first time we did our Patreon. We're doing the Patreon. That's the first thing I brought up when we were having dinner. That the alcohol, they would turn into snakes. Slither like snakes, talk like snakes. It's really weird. It's kind of, I don't really know where to place it. So, but one thing I do feel confident enough to do is talk about it. What is it? What does it do to the people? And what comes with it? As for you talk about the goat man, and we have these snake spirits, that follow these alcohol in the people. So, for that, let's get on to this debate of what it is, and about it.
Before we go on, one of the things that not many people know and actually are aware, that alcohol has been here in the continents before the colonizers came, because the Aztec had at least 7 different types of alcohol, and they were used for ceremonial purposes. There's like a milky one, then there's a fermented one, from maize, brewed using sprouted kernels. Then there's fruit wine, then there's honey wine. But they always had laws to restrict it, who can drink it, when they can drink it. And in the Andes, in the mountains, they found a lot of teenagers, like teenage women, different age people. But they found a lot of girls like 10 years old, 13 years old, up there, dead, just frozen in place. And then when they did the DNA, they did like they treated it as a crime scene. They found out that that girl was drunk. They got her really, really drunk, and then they placed her up there where she succumbed to the elements. So, there's always ritualistic behind there, and there's spirits behind them that drive spiritual forces that drive them. And there's reasons why that we cannot sip it. There's not reasons why that we cannot drink it, because, from my experience, from drinking it, tequila, that one was the one where Don will be here, and next thing you know, he's gone and he's not coming back all night. And I'll be getting into trouble. And vodka is the same thing too. Like, I don't dance, but if I have some vodka, I'll be out there salsa. I'll be trying to dance, making myself like a fool. And so different drinks had me doing different type of stupid things. And I'm glad that I stopped. 10 years sober. It's been great. I finally woke up and I'm aware. I wish I stopped drinking. I wish I never drank, because we all grew up watching our elders, our grandparents, our mother, our father, all partake. Party. That's what it is, partaking. In the alcoholic beverages. So it's just same day. Same shit, new pile, but just maybe much more vast. But what do you? So what's your views and your take on all this, Rodney?
Well, it all started, I think, with the residential schools, the broken treaties, the land being taken, us being pushed further and further and further into these little areas. I think all of that whole history together, it all comes out, and these are byproducts of it, the generational trauma and all that, because you think about it's relatively recent for us Blackfeet, like the greatest generation that we all talk about, the ones that fought in World War II, those are the ones that really, really started this alcoholism in my res. And because before them, like say in the 1800s, late 1800s, it was there too. So it wasn't as rampant though, because there was a lot of holy people still left, and they never did any of that stuff. So when the kids got put into the schools, that generation above, above the greatest generation, those older ones, they were afraid. In my tribe, they were afraid to teach their kids how to speak Blackfeet because of what would happen to them. I mean, it started there, but it really hit with that greatest generation. They were really afraid of it because they had to go into the boarding schools. Their parents had to watch from the outside. So one time, the Holy Family Mission out into Medicine, where I'm from, on the Blackfeet res, there's a story of this man. I want to say it was Cathro was his name. Anyways, he went down to see his son at the school, because my grandpa told me, he says, no, when they put us there, they told my parents, if your kids don't go to school down there, you're going to jail. So you have to go. And they had a census by then, so they knew who was who. And they went to every house and they forced all of the kids into this school. Schools were broke out. There were different places where the kids would go, or they'd be shipped off to a big one. But that they were under threat of jail if they didn't put their kids there. So anyways, they could still go down there and visit if they could make it there. But some of the parents, their kids were hundreds of miles away. They couldn't just travel anymore. A lot of times they couldn't even leave their res, or they'd be, unalived. There's people out there. Whoever the land takers were, the colonizers would unalive them, kill them. So when Bullshoe, I mean, it was either calf robe, one of these, I'll just say it was calf robe, even though I could be wrong here, but he went down to go see his son. And when he went down there, they had his son kneeling on a broomstick, just kneeling on it. And he had his hands up in the air like this. And he walked in and he could see that from the fence, he could see him. He says, hey, get up. What are you doing? Get off your knees. You're Blackfeet. Stand up. Don't no bullshit. Get up. And he made his son stand up, and he walked into that church, and he says, what are you doing to my boy? Why is he on his knees like that? us Blackfeet, we don't get on our knees for anybody. What are you doing here? And he said, no, that's his punishment. He was doing what he wasn't told. He wasn't listening. And he said, so you made him kneel on a broomstick with his hands in the air? What the hell's wrong with you? And he went in there and he beat the piss out of that priest, knocked him plumb under that table. So, I mean, even those little things they could do weren't much. Like, I don't know what happened after that. Did he go to jail for that? I have no idea. But if those old timers got their hands on you for witnessing something like that, yeah, there was going to be hell to pay, but there still wasn't much. It was all traumatized. It was traumatizing for him to see his boy like that. But after that, that greatest generation, they're the ones who were really afraid to teach, like my dad and them. They were afraid to teach them Blackfeet. And so that kind of trickled down to us. Like a lot of us, our first language isn't Blackfeet up to this day. There's a bunch of the school that we have called Cutswood. The kids go there and they learn Blackfeet in there. But again, it's not the first language, but at least they're learning it today. It's more so, it's getting better and better with each generation. We're starting to come out of that. Those repatriating our ways, the things we lost because of those hard times, the kids being separated from their parents.
Yeah.
And there's a lot there because we grow up with this, right? We grow up with this traditional ways. And when you're separated from that, we're just like the Napiquans. We're just like them. You have a void in you. There's, when we have that void filled, the ones of us that grew up with the traditional ways, there's no wondering. There is no, oh, is this real? Let me go get some proof. We don't have that. We know it's real, but these other ones, there's a void in there. And there's nothing wrong with going out and, poking around in the hills like you guys do. But when you look at these non-natives, these Napiquans, when they do it, it's silly. You could tell they don't believe. They say they don't believe, and they want to have proof. And it's one of those things where you look at them and you look at a native, and it's totally different. But how does that all tie into these ghost stories? Well, in my mind, it's because when you lose your ways, that void I'm talking about, you don't have protection. You don't know how to protect yourself versus them. Let alone once you take that into your body in an abusive way without any sort of, you were talking about the Apaches, they have rights to that. That's how it sounds. That's how I would interpret that.
Yeah.
That means those spirits are there and they're guiding them on how to use it correctly. There's a way to do that, right? Just like there is with peyote. That's against my tribe's ways. We can't do peyote. We can't do alcohol when you're on that red road. They don't mix with the medicine. It counteracts it. It doesn't work. So you can't really do that in our way, the way our medicine works. You have to be straight. Your mind has to be clear. The only way we get to those places is by fasting, ceremony, things like that, going without food and water for 4 days and 4 nights. That's how you get there. You sleep when you're fasting, and they come to you in dreams, or they'll come right up to you while you're awake. That's how we get there, is through sacrifice, not through any sort of mind-altering substance. Again, we don't have rights to it. If we had rights to that and the spirits decided we needed to know that, they would have taught us that, but they didn't. They taught others that, but not us. And so when you have this generational trauma of alcohol, that cycle that you teach to your kids, and it just keeps going, and you don't break that cycle, they're going to be in that same boat you are, right? They'll suffer the same way you did, and it all trickles down from the beginning all the way until today. And we're susceptible to it, my tribe especially, because we don't have the enzymes evolved in our systems yet to break it down. And to, everybody's always sicker than a damn dog when you get done with everything, right? It's just it's really rough on your body. We don't have a lot of defense against it naturally in our bodies, so it really tears us up, and it really destroys families and things like that. But like I said, when you lose your ways, you have no way to protect yourself, because their medicine, even if you had medicine to protect yourself, once you take that alcohol, like I said, nullified, they could just mess with you. You're just like a juicy steak they want to bite into. You're irresistible to them, and it attracts far and wide. there's many things that come there. And it's all because we're abusing it. We're abusing it. We're not using it right. And the suffering that comes from that is what they eat. The energy that we let go, they eat that. That's the only thing they have to eat. So like I said, you're like a flame in a dark field and all the moths are just coming to it. That's how you are.
Yeah.
That's really what happens when you get drunk, and who knows what can jump into you. They're
Yeah.
probably fighting over you, taking turns jumping into you. They're just loving it. They just love
Yeah.
it when we drink, and it's evil, man. It's really bad. But
Yeah. And
so it'll go into alcohol, it'll go into drugs, it'll go into sex as well.
Mhm.
These things, it's a big giant world of suffering, and each one has got its own thing. Alcohol, they come to party with you. Drugs, they show themselves like shadow people. That's what I've noticed. Then with the sex, I'll tell you a story about that one that I don't hardly ever tell because it's so rough, right? Okay, so
Mhm.
this one's a mixture of drugs and sex together. The thing that came from that was, so my brother that I grew up with from boarding school, we were in boarding schools together, the modern boarding schools, and you still have to fight down there. There's still pitiful kids come from broken families, which I did, and so we go down there as a safe haven to get away from our home. Seeing your mom fly across the living room, seeing your dad knocked out with a telephone, that shit gets old. And you're scared. And this is a common occurrence. So we decide to go there where there's less suffering. All you got to deal with is boys bigger than you trying to beat you up, right? It's a hell of a lot better than being at home, having adults fall on you and squish you and hurt you. Oh man, so it was better to go down there. And this guy I went down there with, he's actually in prison right now as I speak, but he was telling me he stayed in Browning near the old cemetery in town there, and he says next door there was another guy that we grew up with. These guys are all older now. They must have been about in their 30s at the time. And he was really into that methamphetamine drug. He's really into that. And he would have all of these girls coming over, and there was sex going on, and who knows what else going on in there, drinking too and whatever. So they had a little boy, and my brother and them, they used to watch that little boy, because they might have been doing their thing, illegal substances, but it wasn't, it might be like the marijuana or something. They weren't into the heavy stuff like these other guys. So they would take pity on that boy, and, they'd babysit him, let him come over and visit, things like that. They were his safe haven. And I think that's where my brother learned it from was, when we were kids, somewhere to go that was less evil. And so they took care of him from time to time. Well, eventually he ended up going to jail. The guy next door went to jail. Him and his whoever was all there staying there, all the adults went to jail, and that little boy was left without nobody to watch him, nobody to care for him. So they took him in, and that house set abandoned. And once a house gets abandoned and everybody goes to jail, all of the other brothers and friends and all of these guys come and raid that house and steal everything in it. And so it was empty and abandoned and just, sad. So a broken home, a true broken home. And one day that little boy was looking out the window and he was looking over there and he got scared. And they noticed him scared of that house. And they said, "What's wrong? Why are you scared?" And he said, "Because that thing is over there. That thing that stays there. I seen him. He was looking at me in that window." And they're like, "What?" And they didn't make him look, but they looked over there. They didn't see nothing, but they remembered what he said. And so sometime later, my brother's wife, I want to say, was the first one to see it. They looked over and said, "Oh my God, come look at this." And they both looked out and they seen it walking around in there. And it looked like a man walking around, but it had a male appendage for a nose. That's how its nose looked, like a male reproductive organ was how its nose looked. And that scared the hell out of them. Right now, think about that. Think about how these things look because of your actions and what you're doing and the things that you can manifest or even unleash. What if that thing was around long time ago, but it never had anything to feed on? All of a sudden, they woke it up and they started feeding it, right? Now, that's the same with all of these things. Imagine when you go out into the mountains and you're partying out there, how old the mountains are. These are the original, witnesses of history, these mountains. They've been here a long time. And so when you go out in the mountains and you're thinking you're having fun out there partying, imagine all the things you're waking up. Which leads me into my next story. Another one of my friends I grew up with, I always called him my brothers. He passed away. We went to the Marine Corps together and all of this, and we met in Camp Pendleton, and we'd hang out down there. And, we had a lot of fun together growing up. Well, he ended up passing away, but and it was from alcohol. He ended up getting a car accident, which is very common on the res. Car accidents take many lives. And this happened to him. What was crazy about that night, just a side story, that night that he wrecked, this is back in my partying days, we were all at this place called the War Bonnet. And he was big. He was a big old muscly guy, and he was saying, "Hey, Rod," he said, "come on, man. I know where there's a party, the after party. Come with us." And I was with my girlfriend, now wife, at the time, and I was there with her. And I told him no. I kept telling him, yeah, I'll go. But I was telling my wife, no, let's not go with him because he's already past that point. Because he used to get really miserable and tell me, "Rod, I could hurt you." I said, "You could hurt me? Well, then hurt me." Like, shit, don't talk. Do it then if you think you're so bad. I don't care. I don't care how big or bad you think you are, then do it. He would never do it. He would never cross that line. But that's how it was. So I didn't want to go around him that night. And so I told my wife, I says, "No, as soon as everybody starts going out that front door, let's go out the back and we'll go to our own." Because she knew some friends where it's going to be mellow and we're going to go to a little after party. Well, we go there and go home, go to sleep, pretty uneventful night as far as drama is concerned. And I get a call at 3 a.m. from my sister. Like, yeah, he's dead. I said, "What?" Like, yeah, he went back to his place. They were having a little after party. He went to town. I don't know what for, but he went back to town and he wrecked on that bridge, and that was that. So again, more of this tragedy because of alcohol. Well, he was also a powwow singer, and when he was younger, and he used to hit the powwow trail, going to all these different reses and singing. He sang with the Kicking Woman Singers, and when he went to, I just know the name of it, but I don't know the tribe there. The Bonners Ferry is the name of the res, and it's west of us through the mountains. Well, when they were there, they had a 49, and if people that are listening don't know what that is, it's a gathering where people basically just build a bonfire, and they all go out and they park out in the wilderness, away from town, away from everything. They go out there. And if there are drummers that partake, they'll be out there singing songs and people visit. It's just a party, basically, but kind of with the native spin on it. And so they're out there in this place where they always have their 49s. And where they're at is a group of trees, and it's kind of on this high ground. And there's a cluster of trees. They got fire up there. They got logs that everybody's sitting on, and big space for people. Well, there's this little trail that leads off, and he described there's some more trees over there, and that's where people would go to use the bathroom. Women would go in groups. Of course, us men would go single over there, And he said, I went down to use the bathroom, and everybody was just coming back. He says, when I got there's nobody over there. He said, so I start using the bathroom. He says, and a guy come from the woods. He said, he wasn't very tall. He come out and he said, "Hey, what you doing? What you guys doing up there?" After he's done using the bathroom, he start talking to him. They walked at those trees a little bit. "Oh, nothing. Heck, I'm just new here. I'm Blackfeet. I'm not even from here, but we're singing at the powwow and this and that." So, "Oh man, that's pretty cool." He says, "Well, hey man, like who's all up there?" And you start telling them who was up there, And he said, "Well, can I come with you?" Like, shit, I don't even have anybody out here. So yeah, come hang with us. Heck yeah, man, come on. He was a cool guy. And when they all get up there to that place, his friend up there. His name was Martin. And he said, say, hey Martin, check out my friend, man. Heck, he's pretty cool. Okay, followed me up from down at those bathroom down there. And his friend's like, oh yeah, really? And he looked over and oh, his face has changed. He just got scared. And he looked at that little guy, looked at my friend, and like the whole party just stopped. They all looked at that thing and they all start running. He's like, what the hell's going on? Like, why are you guys running? And that little guy was still standing there. Like, why is everybody running? And he noticed Martin take off. Like, oh shit, that's my ride. I don't even know where I'm at. So he started chasing Martin. He was behind him, big crowd of everybody, just a stampede, and he could keep his eye on his friend, and he was chasing him. And he could hear behind him that little guy. They called him a Guth Gus, whatever that is. I don't know what that is in their language, but that's what they called it. And it was chasing him. It was running behind him, but it was using Martin's voice. Hey, Dwayne, stop, man, come back. But he could see his friend, and right in front of him, he could see his friend. So anyways, things like that, right? Now, this thing probably is common enough that everybody knows it's there, but imagine the things that you could unleash, just from that last story I was talking about. That one's ignorant, man. That one's just horrible, when I think about it. That poor kid having to stay in that house with it all that time. God knows how many times he's seen it, And I think about that, and it's pretty rough.
Man, do you think that was like a little person or duende or like an alcohol spirit, party spirit? Because I know on the res, like when people party a little too much, like over longer than 3 days, they're running from some kind of monster that they can see, or they'll be sitting down and they'll be like, shut up, be quiet. They'll be yelling at something that no one can see. Because there's different places where I go, I notice people are like that, talking to something that's not there. And like, when I really watch them, like, wow, this person's either drinks or does drugs, and now, they can't turn that thing off. Something is there with them, tormenting them. But what do you think that was though, that guy seen?
I think it was an alcohol spirit myself, but it could have been their version of a little person that was not good, and he's attracted to those things, and he probably stays around that area. That's what I think. Because when I asked him, I said, well, what did it look like? He says, man, he's just like a small little guy. He says about 4 foot tall, 4.5 foot. He wasn't very, very tall. He says, but he had on a long coat. He had on like this long coat, and he had a hat. He says, but he looked native. He just looked like a regular Indian, but a short guy. And he said he was really cool too, man. Like he was enjoyable to be around. He said, that's why I was so confused when everybody ran. I didn't think there's nothing wrong with him. He said, but he used me as an in to get into that party.
The party spirit. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I know my aunt, sometimes she can see in the supernatural. And one time we had this one guy that we picked up and we're giving him a ride, and he would go outside the house and he would talk to himself. I observe him, and when he would talk to himself, he faced his left shoulder. He'd be like this. You see his lip. He walk outside, and you can see him walk like 50 yards away. He's turning, and his lips is moving. And my aunt's standing there. She's like, "Oh, I finally know who he's talking to." We're looking at him like, "What do you see? What can you see?" She's like, there's something sitting on his left shoulder, and it has a long hairy right arm, and it's going around his head, and it's holding his right shoulder right here, like it's reaching around him, holding him like this, and it's looking around, she said, and its face looks like a combination of a monkey and a pig, and then it would lean down to his left ear and whisper things, and he would reply. So, and he was trying to get off of alcohol because he was really rest in peace. That gentleman's no longer here. He he really tried to get sober, but that thing had a grip on him. And a lot of people always would just treat him like crap, and then I would listen to him telling his stories. He had amazing stories. He got chased by Sasquatch around where I come from as well when he's hitchhiking. So, but yeah, man, but that's just my 2 cents on that alcohol party spirit. I have a few more to add to that, but I think those are skinwalkers that always come to the party, and then when everyone gets drunk, they'll be stomping their feet. That happens in Monument Valley. It happens in Navajo Mountain. I'm pretty sure it happens on other places of the reservation. A guy shows up with cases of booze or fifths, and then he would stomp his feet, and everyone would look down, turn their light to his feet, and he has a donkey, 2 donkey feet, stomping the ground. He's chasing after everyone while they're hauling ass out of the party. He's running behind them. So that's one of the common occurrences with parties, and someone following someone back and saying, hey, I got some booze, I got this, I got that, let's go, and following you, and then before you know it, the whole party splits. So I have I've been through something like that before as well. Supernatural once, and got chased out a bunch of other times were drama as hell. But Darren, you got anything you want to say?
Oh yeah, these these alcohol spirits. It's a. I never really thought about how you put it there, Rod. That that these they had permission to do these. Which is really unique. And that since you said that, it took me back to St. Carlos, White Mountains out there. There, that was a ceremonial drink. That stuff that they were given permission to make and partake in that beverage for a ceremonial purpose. It wasn't to get wild. It wasn't to how people just drink and drink. It wasn't for that. It was made for a purpose. So yeah, these it latches onto you. These alcohol spirits, and the alcohol in general latches onto you. Drug use, it latches onto you, and unfortunately it stays on you. And most people can't get out of it. That's the sad part of it. And some people, they try and they can't get it. They can't make that sobriety. They can't. So that I see that, and it's sad. It's sad to see the culture slowly depleting just off these alcohol and drugs. I can remember the first time I came across meth. The first time I was maybe junior high when they started talking about it, that this man was using his excuse me, this might be a bit harsh, but was using his offspring as a battering ram against the police. And I was like, what? And it's terrible. It's horrible to even say, but even if you look at someone drunk, the drunkard, when they walk, they stumble, but yet they're still rolling around. Like, is this a puppet? Is this the you can see the strings, and you can see how limp they go, and their bodies kind of wander around. It's really an odd embrace on this alcohol. But I think this is could be used out there in the public too for out there in the different nations. It's good to talk about these foreign foreign drinks and foreign spirits like these, because they weren't new, but they weren't abused. It wasn't abused. So yeah, as for these, these things also come with bribes. I also know one story that I actually told on TikTok of a prayer man that got cursed. Believe it or not, he got cursed, and he picked up a case, and he picked up a spirit with it, and that spirit was kind of ate the nails, and they ate the nails and the toenails, and to the point where it started eating the body. And doesn't that say something about alcohol too? Once you pick it up, it's a curse amongst itself, and it eats you. It eats you from the inside out. It only comes to steal, and to kill. Unfortunately, it's but it's an unknown object. Unknown foreign spirit out here, and there's no words for it. I can't really explain it myself. When you talk about it, like what is this? And even if for your Bible users, out there in Proverbs, they couldn't even the wisest men couldn't describe what it was, what it is. All they said was to just get up and go try to find more of it. And that's all they got. Is these wise men went is they couldn't explain it. This addiction addicts. And it really is taking havoc at the nations out there too. So it's good to talk about this. It's good to embrace it. Embrace the conversation, healthy conversation. And the Navajo Nation, I heard it is what was that word for it? They don't sell alcohol on our nation, I hear, but people still manage to find a way to get it. So, but yeah, it's a tough subject to talk about, but I think it is should be embraced to be talked more about it. So besides the spooky aspect of it, and you get the spirituality, you get to talk more about this subject. So yeah, as for this, yeah, it comes with a curse too. So maybe later on I'll talk more about that curse that man went through. He's no longer here either too. So he was killed by this alcohol. So so these spirits, I wonder, I think it's called like a flesh eating spirit. I think it's a form of alchemy, you would say. So yeah, as for this, I'm all ears. Whatever you guys want to talk more about on this one, on this alcohol spirit, and also the loss and the generation purposes. So
Yeah. Hey, Rod, do you so what do you think about do you think places hold on to trauma?
Yeah, I do. Like, okay, so this is one right here. Here was an old bar called Minyard's Bar in Browning, and I mean it's not even there anymore. It was this old place, and I want to say when I was really young, it was still up, but it was all condemned and kind of falling apart. Well, my mother-in-law was talking about this, and she said one of her friends, I want to say it was one of those Spotted Eagle boys. Um, he was just heading home and he was sick. Browning is the town where all the surrounding communities go to hang out on the streets and bum and get alcohol and stuff. The ones that do that, we just call them street people. And so he was a street person, but he actually lived way out in Hart Butte, and he had enough. So he was sick enough that he was already ready to go home, and so he was trying to find a ride back out. It's like 28 miles out, 26, 28 miles out. So it's something you don't want to walk when you're sick. And he was going across the street, just passing that bar right there, the old bar. It wasn't running at the time. And one of his partners come up and he said, hey, he says, help me drink this bottle. I just got one, man. Come drink it with me. He says, no, man, I'm too sick. I don't want to, man. I'm trying to find a ride out. He says, come on, it'll be all right. Just drink it with me and then you can head out. He said, all right. He says, well, where are we going to go? And he says, I know we can go in there into this old Vineyards bar. He says, that's where I go. So, all right. So they climb in through the window, and it's all broken windows. They climb in, and it's kind of like a box. They were in one corner, and then there's a hallway. It kind of leads out to a hallway back here. Over on this side was dark. They couldn't really see in that little corner right there, but they were opposite it over here. And as they were sitting there drinking, he kept hearing something across there. And he couldn't tell where it was coming from. Here it was in that darkness. He was hearing talking over there. And he kept looking over there, and he'd drink some more, and he'd look over there some more. Next thing you know, he seen something in the darkness, and he said, "Look." And his partner put his bottle down, and he started looking over there with him. As soon as they did, this cat stepped out a little further. It was a cat. And that cat said, "Get the F out of here. I told you guys. I told you not to be around here." You know, and this spotted eagle, he quit drinking. He totally sobered up after that. That really changed him. It scared him so bad that he ran out of there. And his buddy acted like he knew it because he was telling him, "Oh, don't worry about him, just ignore him." He always does that. That was his attitude. So when I think about that bar and those areas, yes, even a bar, right? It holds this negativity there. They probably sit there and just wait for somebody to come back, and then they wake up, they come back out. And as far as like, like of course battlefields, things like that, and people say, "Oh, there's an Indian burial ground is really haunted." This whole nation's an Indian burial ground. Think about how many natives are buried on this whole place. Unmarked graves. We don't even know about them anymore. Thousands of years old. This whole place is an Indian burial ground. So I mean, it really doesn't matter where you're at for something to come out. And that's the caution I have for people is, if you do that, you do partake in alcohol, always go to the places where nothing happens. That's the least you could do. Never go, if you're a female, never go alone with boys. That, things like that. Never get into a car that doesn't have a designated driver, because those spirits are there waiting for that. They can even influence things to happen like that. So always stay where you're safe. Family is where you're going to be safe. If you have family that's normal. Always be around the safe people, no matter who they are, and you'll always be okay. And stay the hell away from cars. Just walk. If it comes down to it, if it's safe, just walk with a group of friends to the next, wherever you can get a ride from someone sober. But yeah, I really do think that these things hold on. I mean, when you think about sacred sites too, those are really powerful, and those hold everything, right? There's a lot in there. So yes, I think a lot of this can be held in the land itself, and I think that's where a lot of these spirits come from, is the land itself. And then see, the other thing is though is, well, before I get into this next spiel, do you have any more questions, Don, that you wanted to ask?
Oh yeah. I do have questions, but I think those ones you pretty much answered, because one of the questions when let's see here. I wrote it down here. Let me find it right here. I was just gonna ask, like, do you think these dark entities feed off of fear? And another thing too that you covered as well, I was gonna ask was, I know that when people do get in the intoxicated, there's things that jump inside of them, and the things that I've noticed and that I've experienced myself is that, things jump inside of you. Some things might want to dance. Some things might want to fight, and some of them might want to just talk, and some just, you just end up crying. And I was at a bar one time, and I got into a fight, and I got stabbed 3 times, and barely made it to the hospital. Lost so much blood. But that same bar where I got stabbed at, so many people died there from stabbing, gunshots, getting beat to death right in front where I got stabbed. So, things really do record what happened. And there's things that will wait for you to get intoxicated so they can jump inside of you just to experience the human pleasures, because there's beings out there that are in another realm, that are in another dimension, that cannot come here to our dimension to experience this temporary feeling that we are. feeling right now, that we are experiencing right now, this human experience. Because one day we're going to go out there, we're going to leave this body forever. And, maybe we'll go back to the Big Bang. Like the first world, everything was dark. The first world was a dark world. So that goes all the way to the Big Bang. And we're all spread out. We're all brought here. Who really knows the answers to all that? But go ahead. Oh yeah. There's just one question here from one of the viewers that backed up what we're talking about earlier. So I thought we just throw this in, then I'll let you cook again, Rod.
Right.
Crazy Coyote 1313 says, can confirm there's a ghost / poltergeist of a drunken lady. She haunts her old house on Route 15 going to Greasewood. My old hometown, Holbrook, Arizona. A lot of ghosts because of old bars there. And the train that ran through there lost many relatives to the train because they were drunk. Sorry for your losses, Crazy Coyote. Condolences, brother. But I think go ahead, Rodney. Go ahead. It's all you now.
Yeah, that's a good little segue, what you were talking about with passing away and stuff. So what happens when you pass away, when you're drunk or anything like that? Well, a number of things can happen, right? So ultimately, we all go back. We all go back to whatever you want to call it, to Sand Hills, to heaven, to whatever, happy hunting grounds, back to the light, to the source, whatever. We all eventually go back. We don't ever stay here forever, as our spirits. We always go back to that Sepastapeyu, the source of life. We all go back to that eventually. So ultimately, when you go back, you're okay. It's like passing away from cancer. You go on that side and you're healed. Everything's okay. We're back to the way we originally are as spirits. That's our real life. That's the future world we go back to, which is actually the past when you think about it. But we go back to that. So your body might have been drunk, but your spirit's not. So that's a good thing about it. There is a happy ending to even the most tragic stories here. So keep that in mind if you had people that have passed from this. And we all know those people. My dad is one of them. So we all know this, right? But that's what happens in the end. They get healed and they're okay. They look in on us. And they like when we talk about the funny times that we had with them. If you can invoke others' laughter and with stories about them, they really like that. Because the minute we're talking about them or we hear them, we're thinking about them, they hear us. And they're right there. They know. And so that's why when we're telling these stories, I always have my smudge with me. I never ever tell stories without it. It's like a little barrier. But anyways, so before you actually make it back, eventually, before you make it back, you can be trapped. You can be stuck. And there's an old story of when this woman, she passed away. And this was like in the Depression era. And I don't remember the names. She passed away and they called in all the holy people to come in and try to help her, to revive her. And they were successful. They end up bringing her back. But this is a really, it's got to do with medicine too, right? The medicine that he sought out. And in lieu of telling it wrong, I'll just skip to the end because I don't fully remember it. Well, anyways, when she came back, he had restrictions on what he could do. He couldn't strike her or anything like that. There's a few others that he couldn't do. So he had to live just a certain way or else what they did would be undone. But what really stood out to me is when she came back, he asked her, "Where did you go when you died? Before they brought you back, where did you go?" And she said, "Oh, I just went to these old, those houses that were all busted down from our family that ain't standing anymore. Well, on that side, they're all still standing. And I went there. I went to my family and I was living with them. I was going to stay with them. And then I got called back here." But that always stood out to me. So when you do pass, what happens if you're like that? You might go back to where you realized safety or where you were comfortable. But see, that's here. That's here. Like your what I'm saying is it's your consciousness from here. It's not your consciousness from there. Now, what's the difference? Well, here we have all of these things. We have family, we have houses, we have this, that, and the other, all these earthly things. When you're over there, you have more of an understanding of everything. You know why babies die. You know why all of these things happen, and it's all natural. You have this greater awareness, this greater consciousness, because it's plugged back in to the mass consciousness that every life form is. Every life form, I'm talking every pebble, every blade of grass, every planet, every last minuscule stardust has a life force in nature. And we all go back to that same mass consciousness together, right? But before that can happen, if you've died suddenly, it could be from anything, not just alcohol or drugs or violence or anything like that. You can become stuck. And when you don't shed your earth conscious, you kind of get bound here, bound somewhere here. And the longer you stay, the more frustrated you become, the more bad you become, the more you scare people and things like that. You might not even mean to, but by that point, you're so frustrated. Like, where do I go? What do I do? Nobody hears me. How do I get your attention? I'm suffering here. I'm alone. I'm scared. Like, what do I do? But eventually, those people make it over. But when we know in our tribe, when we know if someone's died in a really horrible way, or like especially with alcohol, or we hear of stories of them coming and trying to talk to people, things like that. That's when the ceremonies start for them. That's when they're sent over, and it could happen in a number of ways. We all can do it ourselves. We can pray them over ourselves. Each one of us can do that. It's just a matter of, is somebody going to do it? Do you know that you even have to do it? That's the problem. They're suffering and nobody even knows. So I would say it's just good to pray for all of them. I do when I see things like that happen. So, for instance, this kid, we were going out to Heart Butte, and boy, it was bad. It was a bad accident. But man, we tried to save him. We tried to save that poor kid, man. God, we just couldn't. So I go back to the vehicle, and my wife stays there, and she's a nurse, and I'm just helping with whatever I can. And it was cold, and he was laying there, and he was dying. And I go back because I knew, man, like there's nothing anymore we could do. So I go back to my car with the kids, and I just started praying for him. Just and how I do it when that happens. Well, for one, I'll take out all my sacred objects and I'll call on all my helpers to help me. But I didn't have any of that there. But I still called on, you know, any spirit that I could, especially the creator. And I talked to him after I called in all talked to all of the spirits first. Then I talked to him and I told him, I said, look, you died. We tried saving you. It was an accident. Don't feel bad, because where you're going, a lot of us that are still alive wish we could be there, because we know we've traveled there before. Our spirits have, and we came back with the knowledge of it. So don't feel bad, don't feel sad. Just let everything go here. And whatever spirit comes for you or whatever you're drawn to with that light, just go to it. Don't look back and don't worry. How whatever happens here is whatever happens here. And we'll get through it. It'll help us grow along the way. Don't worry about whatever's gonna be here, but you leave behind. And so that's how I was speaking to him. But my wife had this dream, and in this dream, he came to her. And because my wife really tried hard to save him too. And he came to her in this dream and basically said, I was lost, but now I'm not. And thank you, right? I don't remember the details of it, but that was the basic message that he gave her. So with him, I think his passing, he was lucky that he had people to speak on his behalf to the
Mm.
creator and everybody to try and help him. Because in our way, those spirits, they just can't come out and help you out of the kindness of their heart. There are spirits like that, don't get me wrong, but when you're seeking something out like that, it's usually you have to go and ask. You have to, seek it out. You can't just hope it happens. You have to approach them and those spirits, especially the Great Spirit, and ask for his, help this way, focus here, help here, things like that. So I think he was lucky that he had a few of us there that were willing to pray
Yeah.
him over like that. Now, another situation is somebody that has rights to a ceremony or something, they'll have that ceremony for him. And once they do that, then all of those spirits, same thing, they all get called in with all of their sacred objects, this different songs, calling different ones, and then they send them over. And that way is really powerful too. Because when I think about that type of ceremony, usually a sweat. And when I think about that way, I think I think of a little kid who's been lost in the woods for a long, long time to where they're starving, they didn't have any water, they're raggy, their clothes, they're dirty. And all of a sudden, they see an adult who's a really good person and really like a park ranger. And they just get this excitement and they're happy that somebody finally found them. That's how I always think about that because of the spirits that they have in a lot of these bundles, a lot of these songs, these rites that they have. These are some powerful spirits, and just for instance, one of them that I know about, a really powerful spirit. I don't want to say too much about it, but um, I don't even want to say its name, but because they all have names, like just like we do. But this one, imagine a giant buffalo, a giant buffalo. I'm talking hoofs like this round, giant, so big that it eats trees. Imagine that coming for you when you pass, and it's speaking to you, like, "Come on now, it's time to go." And the feeling it would give you because it's so powerful. That's what I think about. So there are a few things we can do when people pass, right? We there's things we can do to help them, but a lot of times nobody helps them, and they're stuck, and they become like hauntings. So this girl, young girl too, man, like 15 or something, young. They were all drinking and they were in a truck and they went up on a side of this hill. They were just trying to turn around and leave that spot, but when they went up, they rolled and that vehicle crushed her and she passed away. Well, that was horrible, man. That was like really bad. That really hit the community hard, and everybody felt so bad, and it was just a tragedy. And my brother was walking, and his firstborn child was just a young one yet, so they had her in a stroller, and they were walking by that junkyard where they piled all these vehicles like that, and as they were walking by, there's a chain link fence so you can see through it, and then it's just regular fence that you can't see through. And that drive through where they pull in was the chain link, and they're walking through there. Well, he glances over just as he was getting to that fence where you can't see. He glanced over, and he's seen before he went to that fence a man sitting in the driver's side with a hat on, like a cowboy hat, sitting there in the driver's side, and the truck's roof was caved in like this. That girl that wrecked was sitting in there like that, all busted this way, like her head was just totally, you know, busted like that. Well, he stopped and he backed up and he asked his wife, "Did you see that?" She glanced over and seen it too as they went by it. But when they went back to look, it wasn't there. They were gone. But it was that truck that she wrecked in. Well, sometime later, must have been, oh geez, about a year, roughly, a year or two later, my sister-in-law was out there in that place where that girl wrecked. Not at that place, but in that community. That place was a little west of the community up on these hills. You can see them from the like kitchen window of all the houses. You can see that area. But they were at a house near there, and this girl pulled up, and there was like I want to say there was two of them that pulled up in this van, and my sister-in-law was outside. She was outside standing there smoking cigarettes, and when they pulled up, uh, those two got off, and they start coming. Oh, how you guys doing? Like, we're doing all right. Yeah, come on in. Just talking, and they said, "Well, ain't you gonna have your friend come in?" Because my sister-in-law and them, they seen three people in there, but there was only two. And when they said, "Well, wait, no, there's only us two. Like, what are you guys talking about?" They start getting scared. It's like, "No, there's three. She's still sitting in there. You guys gonna go get her? Like, go get her. Oh, these guys you're rude." They're like, "No, no, there's like nobody with us." So they all start looking in there. Man, it was that girl that wrecked. She was still trying to party with people, still hanging on, following people. And I think somebody eventually had ceremony for her. I think, if I remember right, Arlen Potts was talking about that. I think somebody might have had a ceremony for her by now. But anyways, they stay, depending on what it is. And in this case, alcohol, like the topic we're on. Those are the things that can happen when you pass. But like I said, don't let that fear you, because that's what they want. They want fear, they want suffering. That's what they eat. There's like us, we can take food, and then we have an energy transfer there, and that'll sustain us. They can't eat. They need different energies, and the good ones, they obviously it's all good energy that they sustains them. Well, these bad ones, these negative ones, they've found out that there's negativity that they can eat to sustain. And in order to do it, they have to influence these bad things, like that cat. Why would the cat tell them, get the F out of here, and appear as a cat? Why would it take that form, that spirit, and do that? That's what I think. And it's to scare them. For one, they have the alcohol, and it's to scare them. Maybe it was trying to get them to hurt themselves on the way out, to run out there really fast and get hurt. Maybe it was to continue the hangover, don't drink in here. Keep suffering because I like that. Who knows? But yeah, this is a very broad topic when you speak about alcohol spirits. The other thing, well, let's pause there, and then I'll continue. Is there any questions or anybody want to
Oh
add
yeah.
anything?
I'm glad that guy kicked that guy's ass. Going back to your earlier stories, kicking that guy's butt, because with one of the things that the boarding schools brought is one of the traumas that it brought is one of those sexual perversions. The where a lot of the kids that went over there, they had the nuns and the priests touch on them. A lot of bad things happened to them, and they came back to the reservations and brought that with them, along with all the other ghosts that we have running on our reservations alongside the road, and it passes on. It keeps going on. And when someone when that happens to somebody, that person is going to keep continuing on. That's one of the things that really plagues the reservations as well. And if we all can, go back to our roots, first things that I would recommend, if you were male, a lot of the tribes, the first, like a lot of us Native Americans now, this day and age, that we all didn't go through the rite of passage to be a man in this world. There's ceremonies to become a man. When you first hit puberty, for us now, we're supposed to sweat, and we're supposed to split with the men, with the older men, in the sweat lodge. Then when we become a warrior, that's another that's another whole deal. Then the same thing with the female, they have their kinolda, they have their ceremonies, in order to walk this world. And, that's what the boarding schools took away from us. And that's one of the things that I've done, when I hit 21, when I was 21 years old, I went back to my roots, to try to stop the drinking, to try to stop, all the drug use. And, I got into selling that at one time as well. And I was dealing with a lot of bad things and a lot of weight on my shoulders. And one of the best things that I done was, go back to, to get to know who you are. Because when you're running around this whole world, everywhere's your home. As long as you know who you are, where you come from, and your language, and you take your family and your past loved ones with you everywhere you go. And, they're there, they're watching us. That's one of the things I want to add into there. Darren, you have anything you want to add before we let Rod cook again?
Yeah, the the old generational curse. You can see it. You can see it in movies. I think Reservation Dogs did a pretty good one with the. It was a generational, bondage that goat lady, the goat woman, deer woman was displaying. All the hurt from the boarding schools and all the the pain that people were suffering. She was she was depicted as bad, but I like how they put her dear woman in this one. And also another movie, the new one, the little series, the generational curse, generational grudge, or however you want to put it, that this clown character, he picks what scares you most. As when it came down to the Native Americans, right there, it was the church, it was the Pope. When they seen, so when that clown dressed up like the priest and was actually, and everybody was scared. It's hard to explain. When you picture the America, they picture Christ. They see the all-loving God. The all-loving Son. But that was never shown. Sadly enough, that part was never shown to the Native Americans. And they were, once they seen that, they ran because they weren't good. So that's all the generational thing. And that's all. Right now, we're just we're still beating that. We're still fighting against it. And or my parents suffered, their parents suffered, and it's a generational thing, and I'm next in line. So the best thing we can do is talk like this and break these these curses, especially for the broader audience out there. Have them especially the non-natives, give them let us tell you about it. Let us tell you about how it is and what it's like, instead of reading a book and say, oh yeah, well it says right here. Like, no, that's not how. That's written history. Most of the history of the Native Americans were never written down, and there was always talked. It was always spoken one to another. So that's one thing I always wanted to do. And even when you talk, when I listen to your podcast, Rod, you talk about these alcohol spirits, and I just always wanted to, bring that topic up, and these spirits like this, and now it's done, and I'm pretty sure it's not complete yet. So, let's keep it rolling, dude. Let's keep it rolling.
Before we go, Rodney, can you remind everyone where they can find you?
Yeah, I'm on Spotify. It's Lodge Tales Podcast. I'm on Spotify and Spectre Vision Radio. That's where I always say to go there first. But yeah, there's Spectre Vision Radio. There's Spotify, Audible. It's on there. Anywhere you get podcasts, YouTube. And also there's a website, lodgetales.com. All the episodes are posted there as well. But if you want the bonus episodes, that's a patron only thing. So you got to become a member there. It's $5, do your little binge and then unsubscribe. It's that simple, and then wait for more. That's what I always say. you don't have to stay subscribed every month if you don't want to. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
Nice.
Awesome. Thank you. One of the I had a question here. I'm trying to find it. I have a bunch of notes here. Oh yeah, is there like any stories that during your podcasting, is there any stories that was told to you that you're hesitant on sharing with the public?
Yeah, the one that I was hesitant was that one with that sex spirit or that thing. I don't know what that is. When my brother spoke about it, he referred to it in the non-native way. He said a sex demon. I don't know that one. I'm always kind of hesitant to talk about, but I rarely tell those stories. And also, I had a couple experiences that I've never told that I'm hesitant about. Aside from the podcast. But as far as the podcast goes, you know, because it's on a podcast, and I have permission of the folks to publish these stories, I've pretty much put it all out there. There's nothing I've really edited out as far as a whole story because it was too intense or anything like that. The goat man terrorizes a family. That one I had to put a disclaimer in front of. I warn people like, man, if you got kids, put them to bed before you listen to this one. This one's pretty rough at times, so be prepared. That was the only one. But yeah, if anybody's interested in that story, it's about a woman where the goat man followed her from Arizona all the way up to Alaska and terrorized them in Alaska. It's a rough one, man. It's rough. But one story that comes to mind as far as my personal side that I don't think I've ever told on here anywhere is and I'll do it here. I'm always giving you kind of first crack at things, it seems like, but hey, we help each other, right?
Oh yeah, appreciate
So
it.
when I got out of the Marines, I joined the Arctic Infantry up in Alaska, and one day I got a DUI, and it was baloney how I got it. Somebody stole my car. I had a designated driver. We went into the store. Someone stole my car. I ended up getting the car back because the guy who stole it just drove around the block, and I jerked him out, and I didn't beat him up, but I jerked him out, and I got in to repark, and my designated driver was still in the store, and I got a DUI. It was baloney. But anyways, they didn't have a county jail kind of thing up there, so they had this correctional facility. I went to prison for 3 days in Fairbanks, Alaska, when we had a 4-day weekend. Our first 4-day weekend, I was ordered to report to prison. So I'm in there with a bunch of Eskimos, Athabascans, and there's a few non-natives in there, but it was really chill. I got to stay in this little camping area. I don't know. We had TV. It was just boring more than anything. But when I first got there, I was getting food, and as I was getting the food, I look up, and it's one of my friends from Chamao Indian School. And I look at it. He looks at me, and he says, "Rod." I'm like, "Oh shit, Blue Sky, what the hell are you doing here?" He's like, "Man, what are you doing here?" Like, "Oh man, I was feeling bad. I got to stay here 3 days, man." He just bust out laughing at me, and he said, "Man, I got 7 years. I don't even want to hear it, bro." He says, I'm close to my end, but I had 7-year sentence here. He says, I'm really close to getting out. He says, in about another 6 months or so. And I was like, holy shit. I was just thinking about that. But anyways, that same guy, we ended up meeting again when he got out in the bars and stuff. And another friend from Chimawa came, and I kind of got around them. Well, anyways, one weekend he said, hey, come out. We're going to be at this motel. Me and a bunch of other, people from Arctic Village and Vinitai, the Athabascan crowd. So, all right, yeah, I'll come out. And so I went out with them and to this little hotel, and it was just like a bunch of, older people than us. We were basically just kids at the time, in our 20s, mid-20s. And as I'm sitting there, I kept looking over toward that bathroom because it was like a square room, but on this side was a little hallway that attached to a bathroom. And we're all in this, there's a bed, and I'm sitting over here in this corner, and I keep looking that way because I kind of got an idea of who was all there. I didn't really know them all, but we were visiting and telling stories. You know how it is when you're partying, and I keep seeing some like a shadow. I can't really see them, but the shadow I could see their shadow off of the onto the wall, and they would move around over there. And I just kept wondering who the hell that was. Finally, I didn't even pay no mind, and I'm sitting there with my head down, listening to a story. I remember feeling like, heck, man, should I head out? I was thinking I should just head out. I'm probably about ready to, get on out of here. I was thinking, but I look, I look over finally, and I see this person sitting there with their back facing me on the other side of the bed, and they it's like they just woke up because they look shaggy, black hair, but shaggy, and it's kind of sitting like with his elbows on his knees, kind of looking that way. And I looked at him and I was thinking, what the hell is that? Or who is that? Because it didn't seem right, man. Like something spider senses, whatever was going off, and I wasn't getting a good feeling about him. The next thing you know, man, I started getting more drunk. I just kept drinking and I got more drunk, and that's when he turned around. He turned around and he had this smile that he would smile all the time, like this really ugly smile. It wasn't too like non-human, but it was an ugly smile that he would like evil. And he would look right in the face of one of those people. Like I remember this lady was sitting there on that side of the bed, and he was kind of on this other side of the bed. But he would, as he was sitting there, he would just look right into her side of her face like that and smile big, like really big. And then he would look at me like that. And when he looked at me that first time like that, I jumped. I said, "Yo, man, I was cussing. Who the f is that? Like, who is that?" I stood up. I was like, I was gonna fight. Like, man, this guy's something's wrong with him, man. And all of those people just looked at me like, dude, you need to get your friend out of here. He's tripping out. Like, like they didn't see that person sitting there. Well, they didn't see it, but it was in that room with us. So finally, man, I sat. I was like, all right, because I seen what was happening, and I felt, I don't know, I felt somehow. I just sat there. I felt like I was being outcast or something. So I didn't want to say anything else, and I didn't want to embarrass my friend because he brought me there. And so finally, I just keep my head down. I don't want to look over. I'm kind of looking. There's a window here, and I'm kind of like looking down at the floor and at the window. I don't want to look in that room, and I keep thinking, man, we need to go. But wait, I don't even know where we're at. Like, because I didn't know where we was at. I knew that hotel area, but I didn't know how to get back, and I didn't have a ride. I went, my friend, I met him out past the gate, and he picked me up. So I didn't really know how to get back. I wasn't familiar with the city just yet because I had just got up there. It wasn't long, about a year I've been there, and so I didn't, and I never really drove around out there or anything. But so I was kind of worried, and I also didn't want to embarrass. I had reasons why I stayed, and finally, I remember kind of looking back into the room, and man, this thing would just go to people, to people, to people like that. He wouldn't even get up and walk normal. He'd just kind of appear here and appear there, appear here. Just kept doing that, and it scared the living shit out of me, man. Sorry for cussing, but I was scared of it. And finally, I started screaming at it. I was like, hey, man, that thing needs to go. Like that woman on the airplane? That's how I was, man.
It's not even real.
Yeah, that thing is not right, man. There's something wrong with this person, and there was nobody there. Finally, this old man kind of spoke up. He's like, "Hey, Blue Sky, man, I don't think you should bring your friend back around here anymore." And so I left, and by the time I sobered up, I realized, man, those people have something around them, and they don't even know it's there, man. Like they have no idea what they're partying with, but I seen it. So anyways, there you go. I've never told that story because I don't know, it shook me up, and it kind of, I guess on some level embarrasses me too that I allowed myself to get like that and be in a spot like that. But I don't know, that was one that I didn't.
Was that your first? Oh yeah, man. Glad you're okay though. But you kind of covered what the next question, the follow-up one was what was your first encounter or your first experience where it really woke you up to knowing that the other side is real and the spirits that we can't see are real? Where did it make you realize that? When,
Well,
I should say.
I was just a little kid, and it was the owl speaking Blackfeet. Remember that
Oh
story?
yeah.
That
Oh
was
yeah.
the first time, and I think everybody's heard that story. Did we
Mm.
cover it on your previous episodes we did? Yeah.
Your
So,
first. Yeah.
but thinking about like in the context of alcohol, the first paranormal experience I had that really woke me up to their power was after my grandpa had passed. This was about, let's see, I want to say my grandpa passed in 2001. Yeah, somewhere in there. Well, this was about 2004, roughly. And I was home. I was back home. I had gotten out of the military and everything. And I was staying with my dad at his house, that house full of alcohol spirits, but I was staying with him. And I remember we just had like a 18 pack and we were drinking beer. And I said, we were just visiting, and finally, heck man, I just couldn't quit thinking about my grandpa. I was still mourning him, after all that time. And I thought, well, I said, Dad, I'm going to go over to the campgrounds. It's just across the street past the museum, uh, parking lot and stuff. And I said, Dad, I'm gonna go over there and I'm gonna go into those announcer stand where Grandpa used to always sit. I said, I'm gonna go over there and I'm gonna set this all down. That'll be it. I'll quit feeling bad about him and everything. And he says, all right. And this was, we had been drinking before this, but this was like our last 18 pack. And I reach in there and I grab one so I could walk over with it. And it was dark. It was at night. Must have been about midnight or so. And when I reach in there was three, so I took one. There should have been two left, and I head out. I go back over, and I'm in that arbor and stuff. I do my little thing there, and I tell my grandpa, "All right, that's it. I'm done with this. I'm not carrying this anymore. I'm gonna let it go." And so I came back, and I remember keeping my can because I didn't want to litter, but I had drank it up by the time I come back. And I cross that street and I go back into the house. I put the can in the trash, and my dad's still sitting there where he was at. And so I open that fridge and I reach in there and I grab another one out of there. And when I first went over, I must have mistaken because, there wasn't just two in there. There was still three. So I must have mistaken what I grabbed. I must have not have, you know, reached. I don't know. I must not have reached far enough in. I just thought there was, a few in there. But there was still three. So I figured my dad must have grabbed a couple or something because there was three. And so I sit down and I'm drinking that one, right? And my dad and I are still visiting, and we kind of get off the subject of being sad, and we're starting to tell funny stories and stuff. And so I get up and I'm thinking, well, I'll have one last one, and that'll be it. I'll go to bed. And I reach in there, but there's still three in there. There's still three beer. They keep reappearing. And that's when I realized at first, because when I reached in there, that third, there should have been nothing in there. There was still three. And I slammed that door and I left that can in there and I backed up. I said, Dad, there's still three in there. Like, there shouldn't be. He said, what? I said, there's still three beers in there. They keep reappearing. I don't know how it's happening, but it is. And I was scared because I knew there's a bunch of alcohol spirits in his house. And he says, hey, wait. He says, when you headed over, he said, I reached in there and I took one because he still had his one. He says, I took one and I stashed it for a sick beer, he'd call it, for the morning. He said, so there should have only been one. And when you got back, you said there was still three in there. And then you drank one and there was still three in there. We start figuring it out. And that's when I realized, oh my God, man, these things are powerful. They can do this. I've heard stories about it and it's really happening, man. Like, God, it's real. And so my dad, he said he always told jokes to, mask any sort of, anything bad. He always tried to tell jokes like a defense mechanism. Well, he made the joke, see, because my other cousin was laid out. They're all alcoholics. He was laid out in that other room. He was hungover and he was sleeping it off. And he says, well, I tell you what, he says, let's just drink these. And if we dig back in there and there's still more, he says, we'll just spill it all out. He says, either that or we'll wake up Greg and have him help us kill these off. They just keep reappearing, you know? So, I mean, that's kind of how my dad took that, but not me, man. I was shocked. That whole night, I thought about that and I thought about that. Because the story that always stuck with me was the one my aunt told me. My great uncle, who was a holy man, he he was a Korean War veteran, and he drank a lot, you know, in his younger days. Well, when my grandpa went to sober him up, you know, that there was still alcohol. He spilt all the alcohol, cleaned his house. He was laid out in that room. And when he finally woke him up, he says, go get that bottle on my table. He says, I'll go with you to town, but go get that bottle. He says, there's no bottle. I spilt everything out. I know all your hiding places. I did your dishes. I cleaned everything. It's going to be good. I'm taking you to town to sober up. There's no bottle. He says, yeah, that man brings me one every day. It's right on that table. So he goes out there, and sure enough, there's a brand new bottle. Brand new bottle. My grandpa had cleaned that table, everything. There was nothing on the table but that bottle. And that kind of freaked out my grandpa, but my grandpa just spilt it all out too. And he says, bullshit, you know, baloney, you're coming to town. And so he made him go to town. But though that was those alcohol spirits knowing that he was going to become a really powerful holy man, heal a lot of people. He's known all over in the north up here. Still to this day, people talk about him, you know, different tribes. Recently, I heard a Mandan, a Rikara, and Hidatsa man talk about him. I've heard Crees talk about him. You know, I've heard a lot of different tribes he was known. And so they knew he was going to become this really powerful holy man. And they were trying to keep him drunk, right? Now, that's the other part. Most of the people that get on the red road and they follow the path and they get, you know, certain rights to medicines and things like that, and they're doing good. It seems like a lot of us all started with, you know, really rough lives. Alcohol, especially. We were all drunks at one point in our lives, and we've all come back around, and we left that, and we're following a higher path now. So for the people that struggle with the alcohol, just to remember that when we're at ceremonies and we see people coming in and we know they've been drunk a long time, we get happy to see you, man. Like, we get happy to see you. And we'll do anything to help you along your path. Here was a guy that he was an older guy that used to always drink with my dad. My dad he had stories, party stories of my dad when we were at the Sundance. And he was, at that time I was talking to him, he was like a year sober. And you could tell he was, you know, one of those old guys that are coming off of it. I mean, even then you could just tell they got a certain way about him. I recognize it from my dad, but I could tell. And so the next year he was 2 years sober. And he's just constantly doing that. And man, so anyways, one day I end up gifting him something, and I think because people are helping him in all of these ways, not just, you know, by being kind and including them in everything, but also giving them things that'll help them in their lives. I think that's what everybody has to look forward to. So a lot of people might be on drugs or alcohol and they're afraid to go to these ceremonies. All you got to do is sober up for 4 days. That's the only thing in our way you got to do. You have to be sober for 4 days. Once you hit that 4 day, man, go to a ceremony. Just suck it up for 4 days. Anything you got to do, then hit that ceremony. Once you do, you're inviting them, the good ones, into your life, and it can erase all these attachments that are around you. And really how that manifests is bad luck. That you have these attachments, it's bad luck after bad luck, just a series of unfortunate events in your life. You ever notice the ones that are addicts and alcoholics, there's always some kind of drama. Every time they show up, oh, my car broke down, man, I need $5 for this. Oh, this happened. man, my wife got beat up, she's in jail. It's always like that. And that's why, because those things are attached to you. Now, when you switch that and you go back to the ceremony, all of those good things are around you. And all these good things start happening to you. It's just a change of, the spiritual forces that are around you. Really, that's kind of what it boils down to. But what's more about it is the more you hear your traditional stories. How did this bundle come to be? How did the Sundance come to be? How did this happen? When you start at ceremonies is when you hear these stories, and that's where you have to go to get them. Like Darren was saying, a lot of this is still word of mouth to this day, and you'll start hearing them, and then you start noticing, hey, for every situation in your life, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be geez, your brother stole your wife. It could be your wife died. It could be, this, that, or the other. There's always going to be a ceremonial story that covers each one of these issues. Something's happened in the past that's built into all of our stories that guides us in a good way, because everything that happened to our ancestors, I'm talking all the way back to like Genesis type stories, everything that's carried on till today, there's an answer for it. It's happened before. There's something that's happened before. And how did these guys overcome it? Well, look back to your stories and you'll know. This also helps when people are coming to the ceremony. It could be people wanting to change their lives. It could be people reconnecting or trying to repatriate their lives with the ceremonies. But when that happens, you start recognizing it because of these stories. And immediately, if they ever come and ask you, hey, what do you think about this? You'll know exactly what to tell them. And you're in this position to where all of a sudden you were this no good kid. All of a sudden you're giving meaningful advice to somebody that really needs it, right? So there's always a progression that happens if you stick with it. And it's one of those things where it only, like for me in my personal life, the Sundance is only one time a year, and man, the whole year I miss it. I miss everything about it. The whole year I yearn for it, and I'm excited to go. And every year since me and my wife have been attending, more and more has been happening for us. More and more things have progressed for us as well. So, for instance, this year we're in charge of the cook camp, so we'll be cooking for the whole camp. For me, that's an honor. I mean, who who gets asked to cook for a Sundance encampment? Well, I did, and so did my wife. And the people that get asked for that are good people that everybody doesn't have a problem with, that want to be there and come around, because a lot of your intentions and your energy goes into that food, and it has to be good. You can't just have anybody do that. So, and I understand that. So for them to ask me that for one strengthens my resolve to stick with it, to always do good, to always try hard, to never give up, to never judge people, to always give them a chance, and always help the downtrodden. That's just, having that happen reinforces all the good that I do in my life. And I do this good for, the things out, that I never speak about. Paying lights for somebody that got their lights turned off, helping people buy diapers. I don't talk about that. It's only between me and that person. And I don't ever ask for anything back. Ever. In my life, from now going forward, I have totally changed. I give more than I take. Always. Always like that. And I sometimes I'll stand back and I'll look at my life. I'll be like, damn, when am I going to get some? No, I'm joking. But what I really do is I look back and I notice that because I've given so much, it stands out to me. And I can't change it. It's ingrained in me now. Like I can't change it. When somebody is suffering or anything like that, I always try to give whatever I can. I'm talking like advice. sometimes, like one of my cousins just lost a son. Can you imagine losing a child? Oh my gosh.
Man.
I was
Mm.
able to give her advice, comfort. I was able to love her on a deeper level than I ever could without being in these ceremonies and knowing what I know today. I was able to give this to my cousin, and when you give like that, man, there's no price tag you can put on something like that. That is something real intimate and real special, and I recognize it. So, all of you that are trying to come back because of alcohol and drugs or whatever, or you don't know where you're at in your life, just go speak out your old ways. Go hang around those elders. Just change the crowd. Once you do that, then you'll start changing yourself and it'll become easy. All that negativity will stop coming to you. All of it. The minute you try to walk away from it, you watch. Everybody's going to show up with it. They're going to tempt you. And that's those bad ones trying to get you back. So realize what's happening and turn it all away. And just keep going. Try hard. That's my advice. Ikakimat. Try hard. Just keep going.
Look, yeah, right here. Hang on. We got applause. Heck yeah, man. I hope everyone heard that, took it in, digest it, process it, and repeat just that, what he just said. It may seem hard. It may seem hard, but, reach out, ask for help. There's a lot of us here that, a lot of us, we don't have many people to look up to. Like I, for myself, I don't really have any role models, and the only role model that I got is this guy right here down here. Watching all the podcasts and chatting with him on the phone every other day. And I tell my wife and one of our moderators that's here, Little Wolf. I tell her that, hey man, he's the older brother that I never had. That I wish I had. Maybe I wouldn't have gotten into so much trouble. But much love to you out there, brother. Much love to you. You got anything you want to say, Darren?
Oh yeah, that's the world needs more words like that. Especially in the one we live in now. Everything seems to be so negative and against each other. The world's against it. Everybody's world is against each other's world, pretty much. And they don't realize that we're sharing this planet. We're sharing this world with others. Be respectful for other people and especially other cultures. If you ever get the pleasure of meeting them, be respectful, and that's saying a lot too. And some people just can't understand that either. So, that's a lot of words right there, man. Uh, that's a lot of words. I like it. I like that. I like that. But tell me, Brad, how was your life changed after starting the podcast and doing your podcast like this? It's one of the weirdest steps is to go forward with it. And now you're here. Now you got a radio, and you're talking with Don and myself.
Oh, it's definitely was a positive change. Once you get over your insecurities, because we all have them, especially as Native people, we're all really shy kids. But once you get over that, and for me, I use the stories. When I tell a story, I'll put myself back in there. It's like I'm walking through that whole memory again, and I'm trying to relate everything I remember. So I'm focused on that. I'm not thinking about any insecurity I have. And that gives me the courage to speak better. And over time, just speaking more and more and more, it's become easier. And because of that, I'm able to open up and share things I never would have been comfortable sharing before. Like, notice I rarely talk about a lot of the military kind of trauma from there. You know, I'm on that disabled. I even struggle with it now. I'm on that disability from the VA for PTSD, right? Like that was a big struggle in my life right there. But because because I was able to sober up, change all of that stuff, I'm able to deal with it through ceremony. That's how I deal with the PTSD aspect of it. But even at that, it's still really hard to talk about. I really don't like to, things like that. Because of those memories, if you walk through them,
Mm.
it's tough, man. It's just something that you just want to sit down and kind of accept and just leave it at that. It's really kind of a hard thing to do. But in general, it's been a whole positive experience because it's helped me overcome my insecurities and also reach out and gather more friends. Like I never thought Little Wolf would, we're TikTok friends, we're online friends. I never thought I'd have friends like that. Cheryl, Vanita, Shy, Maddie.
Mm.
I mean, everybody here, and everybody that's always listening on TikTok. It also outside of TikTok, I have another group of people I always talk with too. There's Facebook friends that have friended me and that share stories about a lot of things as well. And I mean, I constantly interact with different people, right? And like so pretty to this day, we're constantly sending each other funny cat videos. It's broadened my friendship.
Mm.
And when you have friends, like really good friends, it's something that you can't put a price tag on, because a military veteran will tell you this. We don't have a lot of really close friends just because of how we are, right? Now, when I go to ceremonies, I have many friends. And then also other interactions like this, I have many friends, right? But if I'm just out in the civilian world walking around somewhere, it's like around here, like, because I live off the res, right? I bought a house off the res. I don't have a lot of really close knit friends. So I get to do all of that through this. And a lot of us veterans, what we really need is people we know we can rely on and we could call up at any given minute and just talk, right? Even if it's just about the most mundane things, because what kills us is our inside of our minds. That'll start driving us nuts. So when we got something we could get out there and rely on, that really helps. And the podcast has helped me do that. But the bigger aspect of this podcast that's changed in my life is realizing the magnitude of these stories. Like, I grew up with a lot of these stories, especially the old Blackfeet stories. I grew up with a lot of them, and to be a man, to realize how important those stories are, and to be able to relay that and convey it to other people, especially the people in my tribe, it really helps. I mean, it really helps to know that their lives are going to be better just because of stories, man. Stories are really important. And that's why I say the magnitude of this, because not only that, but the sad fact is we don't live forever. So if you get your stories out there, they're always going to be saved for your kids and for grandkids and for any family, friends. When they're ready, they're going to be able to listen to your stories. One day, because my father-in-law was my very first guest, and my wife lost him. He passed a little over a year ago now. And one day, my boy and her are on this little road trip back to the res, and he says, "Mom, can I listen to something?" She said, "Yeah." She hasn't listened to the podcast because he's on the intro and because he's in some of the episodes. And so he starts playing Lodge Tales as they're driving, and it starts out and you can hear his voice. And she breaks down, starts crying and says, "Mom, why are you crying?" She says, "It's just really good to hear Dad's voice, my dad's voice again. I miss him." And he said, "You want me to turn it off?" She said, "No, this is comforting. I like this." That right there, I'm telling you, it's bigger than us. It's way bigger than us. Just these stories. That's why I'm saying stories are really, really important, especially the oral history type stories that we have. And if you have a family member telling those oral history stories of your tribe, it's even more special, man, And I realize that. That's why when I have guests come on, I don't ever push, I don't ever prod. People might say, because I get comments from non-natives, "Why didn't you ask more questions?" Like, look, man, you don't do that. They'll tell you what they want to tell you. you can pry and prod if you want, but in our way, that's kind of disrespectful. You just don't go there at certain times. So a lot of times I just listen to their stories, and if I do have questions, they'll be the type that are, well, can you describe it a little more? Like, what did that creature look like that you seen? Because I'll be curious myself. But as far as, asking personal, prying type questions, nah, man. Because I realize that when people are talking, they're trusting me with this story, or they wouldn't even reach out to me. They're trusting that, it's going to be okay. And it is okay because it's a safe environment for us Native Americans. That's why my platform is only reserved for the Indigenous voice. It's just for us. Like, this is the one place you can come. Well, there's many now, but I feel it's one of the places you can come where you can actually be safe and you can open up about your stories, and people ain't gonna question you to death, in a skeptical way. Because I listen to the story and I take it as you tell it, and that's your story, your experience. And if you got a few details off here and there, that's your story. Whatever, you might come back later and remember, like, oh man, I wish I would have mentioned that, because that's not how we get the whole picture of it in general. We know kind of what happened, and that's where I'm at. I'm not going to make anybody feel not believed or anything like that, right? That's just not how it is. Like, in ceremonies, that's where I get a lot of this from. In ceremonies, you're quiet. Like I've said before, like these guys up here, they're quiet. They let you speak until you've landed your plane, right? And you get to finish your whole thought. And that's how it is with a lot of these stories too. I try not to interrupt, but I do try to reciprocate a little bit. Oh yeah, things like that, just to make it feel like you're not alone in a studio. I will do little things like that, help comfort people, and I realize it because I spoke on podcasts. The first time I spoke, the guy was really quiet, and I didn't know if I should keep talking. I wasn't sure. I was unsure, and I'm like, what do I do here? And so that's why I reciprocate a little bit more, just to ease them, to help them. And because there are podcasts out there where they just let them monologue, and I don't know if they cut out their reciprocations or what, but they let them monologue. And for me, I think that might make some people uncomfortable. So there's a lot that I think about going into this, and a lot I've learned about the hardware side of it, the technology side of it. I've learned a lot here. So it's done nothing but help me in more ways than I can probably even, that I'm even aware of. But the main thing for me on a personal level is gaining all these friends, like all of the friends. Like, I get shame when people come up to me at the Sundance and be like, "Oh, it's Lodge Tales. You mean the Lodge Tales?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, it's me, but don't talk like that." I won't tell them to be quiet. It just makes me feel a little shame because, as natives, we're not. A lot of us don't like that. Like the big praise. But hey, it's cool because we are their people that they look to. For these things. How did Little Wolf say at that time? You are our celebrities. You're our celebrities, right? So I don't ever like using that word when I refer to myself, but I've heard her use it. I'm quoting her. So anyways, that's kind of, I guess, one thing I really like about it is getting these friends. I consider them friends, not fans, friends, man. Like, they're friends because I interact with them on TikTok and Facebook, wherever I can. And I try to answer every comment. The only one I struggle with is Spotify because it's hard to reply on there. I don't know why, for me on my end. It's just, I don't get the notifications. And then when I do check, there's a whole bunch piled up. It's when you look at one, it shoots you back to this weird screen where you have to scroll down. I don't know. I just think it's really hard to interact on Spotify. I think that needs to be improved. But other than that, I mean, that's it for me, Darren, is I like all the friendships that I make and I have made through this, this journey.
That's you just took the words out of my mouth. Personally, I was never a talkative person. So, and I'm still learning how to talk to people. I still have a bad rep for not texting back or stuff like that, or talking a bit more. So it's a learning experience, and it's and it's great. I can't believe it. I can't believe we made it here, or and it wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for Don. Don, if it wasn't for me, we wouldn't be here talking to you, and it's a it's a it's a unique friendship, and it's amazing. It really is a nice trip, and Don, he was saying like, yeah, you guys were TikTok famous. Like what? And I'm sitting here drinking out of a freaking pickle jar, freaking plastic cup. So, like, dude, yeah, so yeah, I'm just me. We're just us, and we know. Thank you for everybody who listens and talks to us, because we're just human, and we're here together. We're meant to be here together and to struggle together. And also, one thing too is we're all here to love one another, and that all goes down to respect. So, again, man, thank you. And you dropped some knowledge. You dropped some knowledge, and people are gonna look at that, and they're gonna they're gonna look more up to it. We're up to you, and hopefully, same way with Don and myself. So, man, it's always a like I said, it's always a treat. It's always a gift talking to you, because we always have words like yours, and nobody can do that besides you. And that's unique something to say. And it was good. It's good. We'll suffer together. We'll go through this all, and trying to figure out how to do this technology stuff, because I don't know how to too. So
Yeah. It sucks, man. Yeah, man. Like when we first started hanging out, Darren was quiet, making jokes. First time hearing Darren laugh, he was like, I'm like, what the hell, you all right there? Yeah, ha 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 ha. Like, oh, I was just playing there. I was just playing. But but for real, Rodney, like Darren is right what he said earlier, like how I see you, you're a tree. You're a tree out there, a big tree that gives shade to all the little squirrels, all the different types of birds, that's flying around, and then you give, yeah, and then what people don't see underneath the ground is the root system. You're giving this tree, that tree, the ponderosa pine, the pine tree. You're giving everyone life underneath there, and I think we do need that. We need pillars out there. We need an older brother. We need an older sister out there. Just being around your wife, I already felt the older sister already. Just like I can sleep good with these two here. Being around, because there's certain people where I can't sleep. I'm awake. I'm on my toes. And then with you guys around, just like, hey, I'm just gonna relax. And then my little guy, my 7 guy, keeps asking when are we going to Montana to Dutty Rodney. So we got all that going on. So there's people asking for you that you don't realize. And like I said, you're a tall tree. You're a tree for all of us, and appreciate what you do for all of us. And that giving content and giving a bit of yourself to all of us, and your time, making these videos and all that stuff. So appreciate it, brother. Appreciate it.
Well, like I said, man, heck, the honor is all mine. Just meeting you guys and your family, and like Darren. Like, I already consider Darren a brother. I know we could hang out, anytime, and that's how it is. Like with Little Wolf and them, I know she would become a part of our family. Vanita, Shy, Maddie, all of them. Like, and I'm missing so many that are out there, like Debs and Cheryl, and there's so many out there that I know we already call each other brother and sister, stuff like that. So it would be no problem for us to all kind of, if we met in real life, to just hang out and just click. But as far as my wife goes, oh man, I'm just lucky she even likes me. I'm so blessed to even have her, because I'm a firm believer in, you know, every good man, there's always a support system. And not necessarily is it always a wife or a woman, but in my case, it is. So that old cliche of behind every good man is a good woman. And that's true with me. She's helped me become a better person. Like, just having her in my life has elevated me to places I didn't think I'd ever go. Geez, I didn't even think I'd live past my 30s, you know? And here I am, pushing 50. Yeah.
Wow.
That's half a century right there. That is a milestone. Go ahead, Darren. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, man. I'm just listening right now. So, yeah, man. I can't believe it. You know, it's unique, very unique for myself to be out here, and you know, especially when we're doing the Patreon. You know, it I was laughing about it earlier. You know, like I don't think people would be joking about the situations we put ourselves in because we went in some bad spots, and like I think if people would have been there and seen what we've seen and we're going through, it would have went totally south for them, you know. So, and you know, it's unique because you know we're all just sitting there laughing and you know joking about it, you know, laughing amongst one another, even though you know we're seeing shadows, seeing eyes. You know we're there, and you know it's also a very unique thing to suffer with your friends, and you know especially like that. Humor's very good tool to use when used properly, you know. So yeah, you know, yeah, it's unique. You see, very unique situation find myself in, and I'm happy. You know, it's very rare for me to say that too, but you know, I'm happy. I'm you know doing something right here for
Oh yeah.
masses in the audience out there. So
Oh yeah. Most definitely. Rodney, before we close out, do you want to remind everyone where to find you?
Yeah, you can find Lodge Tales podcast anywhere you get the podcasts, on YouTube as well. The website lodgetales.com and Spectre Vision Radio first and foremost. But I always say it second, but I'm always saying first and foremost. And then you got Patreon where the members only episodes are. For anybody that's interested, I'm going back through the trip down to SW Ranch for a members only episode this soon here, next few days or so. I'm going back through that. So if you're interested, go ahead and stop in there and check it out. But yeah, it's Lodge Tales, anywhere you get your podcast.
right on. Make sure
Right.
you guys like, share, and subscribe to Rodney and also to us. You know, give us some support out there. Thank you.
Oh yeah. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to share as well. Like and subscribe, everyone out there listening. We only got three reactions. But thank you guys for loaning us your ears, and hopefully, you know, this great conversation can affect the loved ones out there. Share the podcast. We're all in this life and walk together in this human experience that we are subjected to walk, and we're all walking this life here and experiencing this human experience together. Why not all walk together, you know, hand in hand? Because we're all gonna leave this body soon, and we're all gonna go to the light source where we all originated from. Darren, you have any last announcements before we end the show?
Oh no! As it this episode deals with alcohol and the effects that it has on the people. You know, seek help if you can. You know, if you need help, call someone that's able-bodied and has a sound mind. You know, we're just human. We all need help. You know, we all need support, and for the people out there, you know, be the help and be the support. So don't drink and drive. If you find yourself drinking, you know, pick your arena first. And yeah, be aware that there are spirits out there that prey on others, you know, the influences and the body, the fleshly lust, you know. So please be aware and take care of you guys, and take care of yourself. And I mean that, people, whoever's listening out there, you know, take care of yourself. And we'll see you here next week.
Oh yeah. Rodney, you want to say laters to everyone before we close up?
Yeah. It was good to have this conversation. I think it was needed, and
Right.
like I said, if you're ever struggling, just go back to your old ways. Go seek out those elders slowly, and be kind to yourself. It's okay to fail. There'll be many failures, many tests along the way, but how you respond to that adversity is going to define you, not your failures. Just remember that and try hard.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. And as far, hope everyone heard what Ronnie said. You guys all take that and take it to yourself. And if you're a young mother, a young father out there, please teach your children, teach your child, show them, tell them that you love them and they matter, and be there for them. If you're drinking, stop best way you can, because the little one's watching you, and he's always going to remember everything you done and everything you said while you were intoxicated. And from Darren and myself and Rodney and I here, we like to say to everyone out there, take it easy. Watch out, look over one another, and be there for one another. This is what this episode is going to be about, all covering all the aspects of all this. But I digress. Okay, closing out here, guys. Thank you for tuning in to Don't Whistle at Night. We have been broadcasting live here on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans. I'm your host, Don Yazzie, co-host, Darren Yazzie, Rodney Williams, Lodge Tales. Don't forget to give him a follow, guys. And from here, from all of us here, love and peace. See you guys later. Deuces.
Welcome to Don't Whistle at Night podcast, where Navajo legends echo in the shadows. Darren and Dawn will guide you through the sacred fire of native storytelling, where the old stories breathe, the unknown walks among us, and voices, long hidden, rise to be heard. And remember, don't whistle at night.